And welcome to the show, Geeks Wired Podcast, where we talk about video games, movies, TV, comic books, technology, and TLDR, the Internet of Things. I'm your host, Bill, and the other host is Anthony.
Hello, Bill.
Hi, Anthony. You can reach out to us and ask us questions by emailing us at geekswired@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail or a text message at our phone number, 801-896-4335. That's also 801-896-GEEK. You also can help support us by going to our Patreon page at patreon.com/geekswired, where you also get access to the podcast early on your own special RSS feed. And this is episode 432 of Geeks Wired.
It's a lot of episodes.
It is. Many, many, many moons. Much moons.
How many moons?
Many.
You said 432?
432.
Really? That's it? The moon cycle's what, 28 days, right?
Sure, if you say so.
And you do an episode, well, wait a minute.
Episode a week. You know, it'd be easier to take the 432, estimately divide it by 52, which is the weeks in the year.
Okay.
And then however many moons are in a year.
Oh, well.
Math. And that's the answer.
And you haven't exactly been putting out one a week, have you?
We missed a few during some moving, and I put out extras, actually. So I think we actually have like almost 440 episodes.
Oh.
Yes. There are more episodes than numbers. And along with multiplying or maximizing space and all that other stuff, just get into this one. There is some research being done to make vertical farms.
So this is a 2-acre farm.
Yes.
How tall is it?
How tall is it?
Yeah, because 2 acres is just the area. Not.
Well, that is the. But it creates enough to make, that covers, it produces more, or the same quality of fruit and vegetables that 720 acres would do.
Okay, so that's pretty tall. Well, yeah. I'm not going to say it's pretty tall because, like, say it's 2 acres and you have 7 layers. That's enough for what? I feel like it'd be more than 14. But, yeah. What are you looking for?
The height. I feel like it jumped on me.
It did.
Yes. They didn't really get into the details of it. But
it might be in that video.
True. But the entire idea, though, is it's a vertical farm, which means you have stories and floors upon floors of food that are, they say AI and robot run, even though there's people in it that are monitoring it.
Well, they're probably just monitoring it just to make sure the robots aren't screwing up right now.
Yeah, and that technically can happen too on a 720 acre farm too, because you get into a tractor and you just go push button.
I mean, yeah, but this is different because with this they can, like, because it's inside of a building.
True.
So it's going to be much more controlled, like environment wise. They don't have to worry about stray dust or, because there'll be dust, but you're not going to have huge wind gusts kind of messing with the robots. Like you could have something on a conveyor belt, or not a conveyor belt, but a track system.
Yeah.
Similar to how like the robots are in Portal.
Mm-hmm.
Portal and Portal 2, where they're just going from room to room on track systems, because they're not just floating around. They have to be held up by something. Yeah. So they could have something like that, and then eventually it'd be kind of cool if they could get them to where they could harvest them whenever it was ready and then replant. Because with these being modularized, you don't necessarily have to, like, you're not going to have you don't have to have the whole thing be harvested at once.
Correct.
Like, you could have each layer be, or each module be, or I don't know, each layer or module doesn't matter, but you could have those be planted all at the same time and then just stagger them out just so that you have fresh food throughout the whole year. Whereas in real life, you can kind of do that depending on where you're planting.
What you're planting, where you're planting.
Well, I think it more depends on where. What is definitely a thing too, but because if you're in like, I don't know, closer to the equator where it's usually like seasons aren't.
Or less of a thing.
Yeah, they're less of a thing. They're still a thing, but it doesn't go from 120 degrees down to like -20.
Yeah.
I'm talking Fahrenheit, not Celsius. It doesn't do that within a stretch of 6 months, 6-month period, where it does in, the northern latitudes. So, but if it's vertical farms, you don't have to worry about that. So
you get to control everything.
Yeah, this is something that I've been hearing about for a while, and I haven't really been paying attention too much to it. It's a cool idea, and I think if they actually like put a lot of work into it, and especially if they could make it to where robots handled most of it, like as they're saying down here, as another perk of vertical farming is it can be locally produced food.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's in a warehouse. So
I'd more call it a greenhouse.
No, it's a warehouse. Because I don't even know they're taking advantage of the outside light.
You're right. It's
because with this,
there are sun mimicking LED lights.
Yeah, sun lamps. Which LED really?
Yeah, that's what it says. There are sun mimicking LED lights shining on them.
Okay, you know why they're saying sun mimicking?
Because it's like a greenhouse or sun, the rays.
You'd have to make sure the LED is putting out the right frequencies. Because plants only take certain frequencies. Like, standard light bulbs usually work pretty good, but I don't know. I think there's a certain kind of light bulb where if you shine it and you just have the plant like not exposed to light at all, it'll eventually die. Because it's not getting the right frequencies that it needs.
Well, that's why certain plants, sometimes plants don't grow very well in offices because the glass, even if you live in like a glass office, because the glass tends to be, block certain UV rays.
Yep. And the plants kind of need that.
Those particular ones. The same ones that burn us are the same ones the plants need.
Mm-hmm. It's like they've evolved to make use of it. Weird.
I know.
Yeah, these would be cool. They also take less water because you don't have to worry about because with water, the plants use it when it's grown outside, but it also just filters into the ground eventually. So you kind of lose it. And because it's all outside, you lose a lot of water due to evaporation.
Yeah.
Whereas with indoors, you still have that a little bit, but it's not as much. And since it's kind of a controlled system, you could theoretically recapture it.
Yeah.
Some of it at least. But yeah, it's a cool idea. And it's probably going to become more and more popular. Especially where population just keeps growing. It's kind of stagnated a little bit, but it's still growing. It's still going up. And if we don't change the way we do our food producing, we're not going to have enough space basically to farm at all.
So the companies that are working with this, so there's the supporters, so investments from SoftBank and Amazon.
Oh, okay.
And a former Google chairman. But they're working with deals with the Albertson stores in California currently, which Albertsons also owns Smith's. No, not Smith. Safeway.
I was going to say they don't own Smith's. That's Kroger.
Yeah, it's Kroger, yeah. Which is interesting they chose Albertsons instead of Kroger because Kroger's the largest grocery chain in I think the world, if not the country at least.
So it may have been that they went to a variety of places and Albertsons was the only one that said yes.
True.
So, and that's probably what happened. Or maybe Albertsons was the best deal for them.
Yeah.
And because this is all in California right now, right?
Correct.
Could be that there's just way more Albertsons in Colorado or California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I can see with some of their other sub ones. Because I thought Albertsons is more of a mountain west instead of a full west. But yeah, that's with so many chains out there anyways. And maybe it is with they're sticking with Albertsons because they don't have to worry about the giant part of Kroger being so much demanding.
So California has 128 Albertsons. According to local.albertsons.com.
Is that actual Albertsons or Albertsons and their sub companies? Or does it say?
It just says this is on a screen called all Albertsons locations.
All right.
And it's just for the U.S., whereas Idaho has, we have 37. Utah has 2.
Well, Idaho is the origin.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, started in Boise.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Boise or Emmett, depending on who you talk to. But yeah.
Started up in that area.
Yes. They say their headquarters is Boise and origin is Boise.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, I don't know. That many locations kind of make sense. And if I click on it, it'll probably show me where.
Which state has the most? Or which count are you in California?
I'm in California. Which county? County or city? I think these might be. I think these are counties. Maybe. I don't know. Where's Orange County? Can I see Orange on here? Yeah, there's Orange. These are counties. So.
Not bad. And it'll be good. And it makes sense for, California does these type of things and it helps produce and do well. I can see this working out really well for lots of places. And you don't need to worry about as much of the maintenance. You can farm whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. Less transportation, less greenhouse gases for transportation.
Maybe. I could probably for sure, but I don't know.
Well, you think about it, you could literally have a small version or enough for each city. Like these things don't need to be big. They just need to be big enough.
Yeah, and that part makes sense, but like how's more getting
you could literally have these attached to every grocery store.
Yeah. So another thing you'd have to worry about is keeping the soil properly nutriented.
That's what the robots do. Is they make sure they
do
they can swap it out. They can, everything is.
But what do you swap it out with?
Or you make sure it gets enough nutrition in the right spot. So when you monitor the soil,
more fertilizer.
Yeah, well, there's fertilizer. There's by doing different types of plants. So you could rotate through the.
Honestly, they could get around this by, like, when they take they harvest the plants for that row or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
They could take all the dirt and then go put it in a compost pile where they put, like, banana peels and stuff, which would just naturally get the...
Yeah.
And then they'd probably sprinkle some fertilizer in there just because you're not going to be able to get all of it. Or maybe they'll do crop rotation. That could be a thing, too. Though I imagine they wouldn't grow something like alfalfa on here.
Why not?
I don't know. They could. It's a vertical thing. Just growing corn in a vertical farm would be more interesting. Like,
impossible. Just interesting.
No, I mean, yeah, interesting. It's not impossible, yeah, but you're like, you basically have to have, even though you could theoretically grow anything you wanted in your module, you'd have to make sure that you'd have modules that were supporting taller plants.
Yeah.
Like corn or, I don't know, if they want to grow wheat-based stuff, wheat and barley. Wheat, you wouldn't need something so high, but barley, you would need something that grew pretty high. Not as high as corn, but
yeah,
corn, you'd need like what's 6-8 feet at least, so that they don't interfere with each other as much. Oh, I guess you wouldn't. No, you need about that much because otherwise harvesting would be a real pain. Unless you had like a robot go in into each individual one and just cut it.
Possible.
What were you looking up?
There was some information that came out.
Oh. New information about what?
Monies.
Oh, okay.
The monies that everyone cares about has been rolling into everybody's process things.
Oh, that.
And that's all I really feel like talking about it. But it exists.
Even though we might get more.
I'll believe it when I hit it to my account. That's why I would go with that.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else to say on this?
On this one, I think this is really interesting, and the technology of this could be useful in even with personal ones. So this could be an interesting greenhouse. Just make a tall enough greenhouse, because you can have some places you can build shops or storage units that are fairly big without breaking city
Code.
ordinance. Yeah, or without having to get certain building permits. So
Especially a greenhouse, I'm sure.
yeah. So this could just be, you could make a greenhouse out of this. And if you ended up doing the, extra maintenance with it or extra monitoring with it and everything, you could literally turn this into a year-round greenhouse that you're constantly growing stuff.
Yeah, you could. And we have you had an old coworker. I have a coworker. He does a farm.
Yeah.
And he has a greenhouse where he's made his, he's basically attached it to the internet, sort of, more or less. He used an Arduino to control the fans. Like, basically, if it gets too hot or the humidity gets too high, it'll kick on the fans so it'll get fresh air in.
Nice.
And then if it gets too cold, it'll turn them off, and I think even close them.
Yeah. I think you're right. You got to see this. I only got to hear about it.
Oh, yeah, I did get to see it. It was cold when I saw it, so I didn't really get to, he had it turned off, I think mostly because it was also having issues.
Yeah.
Or he was having, I think he had an issue with getting internet out there so he could actually monitor it.
But I think, wasn't it some of the sensors maybe? Like he had to update them or swap them out?
Yeah, maybe, or his Arduino code wasn't stable.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but it was a neat idea and something you could very easily apply to a greenhouse that you would be building. Or if you wanted to build a greenhouse, you could apply something like that.
Yeah.
You could have stuff monitor the soil moisture. You could have all the watering of it automated. And yeah, you could do a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
I like it.
Oh man, I saw something else in here. Imported fruits and vegetables. So okay, vegetables not so hard. Most of them. Fruits, on the other hand.
I was thinking about that. Lots of trees, bushes. Bushes would be a little less of a problem. Trees,
They'd almost have to modify the trees. Like, you'd have to genetically modify the fruit.
more so than we already have.
Oh yeah.
I know.
So
I'm
that
just
it
playing
grew.
around.
So it either grew in like vine format or like in like little stalks instead of branching out.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could have a huge, because you could still grow trees in a green or in a warehouse. It's just not as practical.
Yeah.
And if they were to do that, or heck, they could even do this on an outdoor space, but you could still have robots do it all.
Mm-hmm.
It'd just be much harder to set up.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be as, especially if it was outside, you would lose most of the benefits of
Being able to
vertical
control it.
farming.
Yeah. And yeah, the vertical farm.
because you can't, like, unless you're in like super, like in the equator area and you're not in a super like dry area, you're not going to be able to grow stuff year round, which you can do with a vertical farm and an enclosed one at least. But yeah. Now you're looking at campsite stuff.
Yeah. Camping. Lots of fun. Yeah. So we'll link to the article. And there was a podcast that talked more about this. Not ours, but another one. The future of farms.
Oh,
Yeah. Future of farms. 400 times more yield, 95% less water, 99% less space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's called TechFirst.
And in other shows, I think it was in The Expanse. They had they basically took one of, I think it was Jupiter's moons, and turned it into a farming area. It was all enclosed, obviously, but because you could get a lot of I don't know how they what the thinking was. Maybe it was because the planet itself puts off a lot of radiation, so you don't have to worry so much about the amount of light getting to it. I don't know, but
yeah, there's entire articles about why it doesn't make sense.
Oh, cool.
But that's also a year ago. Yeah, a year ago they're like, it doesn't make sense to do vertical farming, and yet nowadays we're doing vertical farming.
No, it's in here. Farming in the Expanse doesn't make sense because they're farming horizontally on soil. Whereas the amount of so in that show, they basically they have such a big population problem on Earth that you get educated pretty easily, and then you put in for getting a job, and you get universal income, but people still want to work because it's boring otherwise, and life is kind of povertish until you get a job, and the wait lists on it are decades long, unless you get an in.
Well, and that's something actually they proved recently too, is that we have to have at least a couple hours of work a week. Otherwise it messes with our mental health.
Yeah, that's something that occupied your time at the very least.
Well, I mean, that's why they said work. Yeah, obviously we have to do something. If we do nothing, it kind of eats away at us, and we kind of feel bad, and it messes with us. So having something to do.
Some people are fine with it, but the majority of us aren't. I get it. Yeah. I'm like that. It would bother me. But yeah, this doesn't tell anything about their.
No, I just kind of jumped into.
Whatever.
I can get back into it. The Reddit article from a year ago.
I don't remember what it says. The Ganymede. Oh. Okay. I think Ganymede's a planet, isn't it? Or not a planet, moon, I think. Pretty sure.
It's
definitely a mythology dude. That's a moon. A moon of Jupiter.
There you go.
So it did talk about it in that article, or not article, Reddit post in the comments. But
in the comments, yeah.
And I guess they were using a special strain of grain there. And so it's something that probably wouldn't be able to grow normally.
Well, in other locations.
Yeah, and it was probably taking advantage of the special, obviously the special circumstances there. Because you're not going to get as much light. You can control the heat, but you still need light. And so they either have to produce it artificially, or they maybe take advantage of whatever the planet that it's orbiting puts off, which there's a little bit of light, but it's mostly radiation. Yeah. And so I guess the plants could take advantage of that radiation instead. But yeah, anyways. I kind of want to talk about this. I didn't get a chance to read it because I opened it up and forgot. And then we got started on the show, but
that'll happen. All right.
Do you know much about this?
There was a little bit. Well, for the listeners, what is this?
This is Privacy is the New Competitive Battleground. It's an article on TechCrunch. And is it due to California trying to get something similar to what Europe has?
The
European Union?
Yeah. With I forgot what they call it. But yeah, this is about the Privacy Act. So this is California Privacy Rights Act. And this is the stuff that even Google, where they started making cookies don't last, or cookies start working in a different way. Apple's been doing some of this. So there's limitations on how people can use with California and Europe, how people can use your information, how they're going to store it, who they can sell it to, all this other stuff. And there's a lot of competition. So if I can't sell your information, then I need to maximize what information I have about you. And large companies like Google, Uber, Facebook, Apple, something like that, they can, and especially where they're headquartered in California. So that's the other thing is, it is not only if you're headquartered in California, but with California's law, not only is it headquartered in California, but also deal with California business. So you can be hit if you are headquartered in California.
So does it have nothing to do with if someone visiting your site is from California?
It does.
Okay.
That one too. So which means it depends on what you have to do with the information with that. And that is creating some other unique issues with cookies.
I wonder how many new VPNs are going to be brought up in California.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why somebody would want to just like point their VPN at California and say that, leave my information alone. Just kidding.
No,
I have literally been doing that lately.
With California?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I knew you were using like Europe, but
no, I wasn't using Europe yet because I've been staying in the States because it's.
I thought you did because we went to a website once and it was in like Italian or something like that.
So I have no clue why. I looked into it. It wasn't. Wasn't in Europe. It ever. So it's been. So my internet surfing's been interesting lately. I don't know why. I thought it was for a moment, but yeah, no, it was still in the States. Actually, I think that was Washington. That's what even was pulling up. Could have been
weird.
Salt Lake.
I'd imagine like if it was in like you pulled up one that was in the part of Canada that speaks French.
Yeah,
but that wasn't what was on there.
Yeah.
I
thought it was the OnePlus. And OnePlus always messes with me anyways. Their website always does.
Oh, I see.
They keep popping me into their main website, even though it's coming from a US connection. So, yeah.
It could be a cookie.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like you might have a cookie set that's set to, like it has what language you want on it. And maybe one time you did have a VPN that went through there and it just set it. I don't know. Cookies are weird, but what you're saying.
They're tasty though.
Not these cookies. These cookies are bland.
Boring cookies. Oh, but yeah. So yes, if you are a California resident, if you or you work with California residents, this affects you. If you are a business in California, this affects you. So it's kind of similar to Europe's. The thing is that it's kind of also easy to get out of this one due to just not collecting not collecting Californians' information. You can actually do that. But so it's like, oh, you're in California, you come to our stuff, fine. You said you're from California, we're not going to collect your stuff. There's also the other things of it's basically where your residence is. So there's, am I visiting from California or am I a California resident? So that's where the VPN thing also can bounce back and not work.
So with this, does it also include a provision for right to be forgotten?
That is some of the stuff that they're not going strong enough on.
Okay.
And
which, I mean,
good news, bad news on that, yes.
Good news. Explain good news.
Right to be forgotten is you're allowed to delete your information.
Well, I know that, but so what's your good news, bad news, I guess? In what, like, who's the good news for?
General people. Just deal with us. The idea of like, oh, well, I never realized that my information being out there was so much, so I kind of just want to like scrub the information off of all the internet about me. I don't want people to pay $50 and find out my address, my phone number, and everything else. My date of birth and everyone related to me. While on the other side, the bad news the bad news with right to be forgotten is you did something or you do something and you should not be forgotten. Or you're a public figure. That's something else that also can kind of happen.
I see. That's what you meant. Okay.
Well, public figure is still kind of so. I'd say public representative, politicians, leaders, I'd say that some of their right to be forgotten might not be I feel like this is definitely a lot more into politics, but might not be allowed as much because like you are doing things for the people of your country or your whatever region that you are over. That means your history should be available to these people.
Yeah, it's kind of a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Because if I were a politician, I'd probably want it to also apply to me personally, but
yeah,
I also understand why it couldn't in a way, but
And you'd want to know about your people too, so you wouldn't want to apply to them.
It'd be a gray area. And like, just because like this law's here, and yeah, you could tell, like you have to go to each company right now and be like, I don't want my stuff here. Bye.
It's an opt-out.
It's an opt-out. And not only that, you don't even really know if they actually followed it. There's no proof.
Oh, there's tons of them that you say, especially in your browser, where you go, you can send a do not track. Your browser can say, tell every website you go to, do not track. And there's websites that say, we don't care about do not track because we ignore do not track requests.
Yeah. And because, and it could be that, like, how much do they get rid of it? Do they completely delete it? Do they scrub it? Do they anonymize it? What do they do?
Yeah. Well, and also, okay, let's say they totally delete it all. Doesn't mean they didn't already sell it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they didn't already sell it, and it's still going to be included in their archives because getting rid of that information is actually really hard, especially if it's on like tapes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And depending on the company and stuff like that. Well, even if this one company that you said delete all my information, they successfully deleted every piece of information that you quit using their product, you say delete all my information, they delete it all. They still have sold your information, which means that information is still out there on the internet.
Yep. And they're no longer liable for it because they already sold it.
They sold it while you were under the agreement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like social media is, I don't even know how much I can talk about this actually. Probably can't. Social media is one industry that's like this. There's other industries where, let's just say you have information that gets shared with other companies and you probably don't know.
Well,
it's like a credit. It's like credit bureau.
Brought up on this before that the DMV sells your information. They sell it to insurance companies. They sell it to car companies. They sell it to all sorts of places. The DMV, the people that you could to get an ID to be used, not even a driver's license, an ID in this country, or at least for your state, they sell your information. The Social Security people, or not Social Security, the credit bureaus, the three big ones in the US, they sell your information. You have to work with them. There is no opt-out on that at all. Well, actually, okay. The opt-out is stop using credit. Like, period.
I don't even think that's an opt-out.
You have to not have a bank account.
They can still track you. Like, if you've ever had any credit.
True.
Anytime you're there, and they may not be able to track what you've done as much, but they could still get the information if they really wanted to.
Well, I guess, by opting out, I guess it means that you stop doing things that need your Social Security number. So, which means if you buy
I don't even
something,
know they need that now. They have enough information where they could cross-reference and just associate. Because there are cases of people having accounts associated to them incorrectly on a credit bureau.
But it would be really hard. Like, you could not have a bank account. You could not have any loans. You could not have any credit cards. Like, it is very...
I think you could have a bank account.
No, you have a bank account. It's associated with the credit companies. They actually have that information too.
Okay, it is, but...
You're associated. You're handing them extra information.
You're right.
And your bank is selling them that information.
And which is also even more messed up because when Equifax got hacked, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And they didn't even, in my opinion, like, has that even been settled at all hardly, or did they even try to settle it? Like, the government?
The government didn't do much of anything. Yeah. They ended up going, we will give you like 3 years of free monitoring or some ridiculous amount of that. And also, if you can say that you had any financial loss from this, we may pay you. And everyone was able to, I think, get up to $2,000 off of it without having to provide evidence. Just saying, I did research, I spent time, my time is money. You could hand over, say, I am owed $2,000. That was a limited amount of money that they were going to offer. I ended up doing that. I knew lots of people that actually did that. I never saw anything from it. And that was something that was available for everybody.
Yeah. So, and that's just like, and the crappy thing is the number they have associated with you, one, was never intended to be used in that fashion.
Yes.
Ignoring that part, though, it's hard to replace it.
Yes.
You can get it done, but it's a very time-consuming process, and just because you replace it doesn't mean that it's not going to be found again. And it's also like, it's not a self-verifying number like a credit card number is. Mm-hmm. And you can literally just make one up. There's only there's a couple of sequences where they're just flat out not real.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to use those, obviously. So they're just going to put in a random number for a real one.
Yeah. So there's been some added security and information to it over the last decade. But
what, not assigning numbers based on the area you're from?
Yeah, not assigning to the area from and not being chronological. They've added a smidgen more complicatedness for new numbers.
And what gets me the most is that like people don't want a government ID. Like that's the reason why they don't want a government issued ID or have one forced upon them. But they have a driver's license
or government
issued thing.
Yeah, or a government issued identification number.
Yeah, it's the same thing though. You have a driver's license number.
Yeah.
So you've already lost that battle. Mm-hmm. So your argument's moot. And I think the only reason why people forget about that is because they probably think that they have a right to drive. So they probably don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Which, I'll be honest, when that argument was brought up to me, and I didn't think about it. So I didn't think about it until years later.
And they're not the only one who does that. Because you even with Facebook, like the hashtag delete Facebook type of stuff, you don't have to have a Facebook account. And Facebook is just as intrusive if you use products. Okay, if you use products that they...
Well, it's not only that, like... So a friend of yours uploads a video.
Yes.
Or a photo. They have algorithms in there to find out who's in each photo.
Yeah.
You'll get a profile constructed for... Okay, by profile, I mean like an AI type profile so that future photo analyzing can easily pick you up. That's what I mean by profile, but yeah. I don't mean like a legit Facebook profile.
You're given a number.
You're given a number, and so if you ever actually sign up for it, and you upload a photo of yourself, you basically have all these other photos automatically.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen where like it doesn't necessarily do it automatically, but like if someone uploads a photo, and you happen to look at that photo, you're able to say like, it'll say, is this such and such? And you can click yes or no, or you can also do that for you.
Yeah.
At the very least, it'll highlight the photo, like the portion of the photo where your face is. Mm-hmm. And then you can just tag who it is. And like Facebook added that years ago. And at first it was just a way for people to be like, oh, hey, this is all the photos that I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And that still is what it's used for now. But I don't know.
It's kind of eerie at the same time.
Kind of what?
It's kind of eerie at the same time.
Oh, it's absolutely eerie because, like, let's say Facebook gets, because it's already a juggernaut, but let's say for whatever reason they get included inside of like a government or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or they get heavily involved with military.
Yeah.
Then you all of a sudden have all these or heck, you don't even need to know that they're involved in it. It could be a sister company that they've distanced themselves so much from. And you could have cameras just like follow you around on the street.
Well, no.
And they can, and like they can do that now, but I mean, like that's like a nefarious thing that they could really do, and they'd have all the data for it.
But there's also companies that scrape photos and scrape information from Facebook, because a lot of the stuff on Facebook is public. So there is information that's being scraped from Facebook or all these other social medias. But that's also with people giving Facebook legit information. Mm-hmm. If you go to a website that has a Facebook connection, and they didn't set it up that company or that website didn't set up to just do it a hard cut from Facebook, like instead of just like, oh, the single sign on, use my Facebook, and that's what Facebook gets, and they get some of the information and some of the talk. If they don't like limit how much it is, all the information this website's been gathering is instantly shifted over to Facebook. Mm-hmm. You didn't sign up with a Facebook account. You don't have a Facebook account. It's shifted over. Facebook gets in and goes, we don't have a profile for this. They throw it into this person is this type of information. It matches that number over there. Throw it in that pile with that number. If this person ever signs up, we have an entire profile for them. If they don't sign up, we have an entire profile for them.
Yeah. And so, like data gathering is a thing that I think is cool, but I also have... It's hypocritical for me to say that, because I also think that it's not cool.
Yes.
And I don't know, like the way they go about getting it all is kind of really clever. I'll give them that. And it could be used, like getting all this information gathered could be useful in lots of ways, not necessarily monetarily, just like in good ways. It's not being used for that.
It could be used in multiple good, bad, and everything in between.
Because like you could, I don't know. I had a scenario that I was thinking about the other day, and I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with like city cameras or something like that, and tracking you. And I was like, yeah, that's a big invasion of privacy. But I had some argument in my head where it kind of made sense. I wouldn't necessarily green light it, but like used in a perfect world, where no one was nefarious, or at least your government wasn't.
Yeah, the watchers are not nefarious.
The watchers?
Whoever's watching the cameras, whoever's monitoring this data, the watchers. The idea of like who's watching the watchers is like the watchers. So who watches the cameras, who monitors the information, what AI
the government... The watchers are the watchers.
Yeah, what AI government or business or whatever, they are the watcher. Who is watching the information? If they are not nefarious, they can use this information for good. You can then be tracked. You can, if something happens to you, it's instantaneously, hey, this person needs some help right now, because we monitor everybody. And we know where this person needs help because of this. Is it because of somebody else? We know who that person is. That we know who the bad person in this is. We know who the good person is. We've seen every situation walking all the way up to it. The bad news of this is we know everything you do. We know so much information about you. We can make sure if we provide you this little dot of information, you will react a particular way, which we know exactly how you're going to react to it.
Either exactly, or you'd at least have a small subset of options.
Yes.
That they could figure out.
And they can guide you down a path.
They could, or if someone were to hack in, or if they were to, let's just go with the hack approach, because that's the easiest. Like the most easy to visualize. Someone were to hack in, get all that information, even if they don't have a live feed of it and they only have the past stuff, they still have your habits, your schedule, and like even someone like me who has like the worst schedule ever, not anything consistent. I'm sure there's still some kind of pattern there. It might be like a week, like weeks pattern, but I'm sure I circle around somehow.
Oh, that is the biggest thing is, I would be interested in this information for myself to see what type of habits. And that's the nice thing about it is if you can see your information and you're open to actually looking at that information, can be used for how can I do better? I want to learn a foreign language. I don't know how I learn. But if I can look at all of my habits and all my things, I can start laying a road or laying bricks to guide me down this particular path that makes me learn this foreign language. So in other words, I'm tricking myself type of thing, or I'm giving, not really tricking, but I'm providing myself a path that I will take. I want to lose weight. I do these particular items. I do these particular, or lay this particular path. I will follow this path because this is how I work, and I will succeed. On the other side, I want to break a habit. I lay down little roadblocks in the way. I will run into them. I will stop. It may not be tomorrow, but I create these, make something a little bit easier. You'll do it. You're more likely to do this. Make something a little bit harder. You're less likely to do this.
For me, if I had some kind of assistant following me or like watching me for these little bad habits that I've told them not, basically just to prod me whenever I do it, that'd be great. But
that wouldn't, that wouldn't work for everyone. If I had something to in here like, hey, that's a bad habit, be like,
no, not pointing it out. Just be like, well, because I'd imagine you'd be able to customize it, but
yeah.
Just if you said, hey, I'm trying not to stop biting my nails or something.
Yeah.
Anytime I do it, or either, if not, bug me about it, make a note of it so I can at least see how often I do it and to see if it's trending downward. But at the same time, we might have some kind of local processing power enough to do that right now, but it's only in a certain amount of circumstances. Like the stuff that's being done remotely, and which is what most people don't like about their assistants actually, is because in order to have that much processing power locally, you would need, the device would be way more money, and it'd take more energy to use, basically. Yeah. And in that sense, having all done remotely is nice, and it makes a lot of sense. And from a whole lot of perspectives, it makes absolute sense. You're not paying for the processing power. All you're doing is paying for networking IO. Yeah. And a little bit of power for sending it and analyzing it a little bit. And you don't have to worry about maintaining the infrastructure. You don't have to worry about a whole lot of other stuff. But the biggest downside to it is privacy, because even if they have it over there only long enough to process the information and then it's deleted immediately, it's still there. Someone could capture it in the middle, or they could have a memory leak or whatever. Not a memory leak, that's a bad wording. Basically, they could have something wrong with their scrubbing to where it's grabbable for a little bit or something like that. And that's the downside. That's the reason why we're not going to have assistants like that for a while. And I don't know that we ever will, unless there's something really privacy laws put in that are really hard and make it to where doing all this stuff remotely, remotely processing it, isn't practical anymore. Yeah. And we're getting computers now that you can get a small enough chip to where you could fit it in dang near anything. Mm-hmm. Like the chip in the laptop I have now, I think the circuit board is probably as big as I don't know. It might be 2 or 3 sticks of gum.
Ah, fun.
So, and the actual, most of that's circuitry for the ports and just a lot of other stuff. Whereas you're talking this little single chip, it's not that big, and you wouldn't even need I don't know. I'm just wondering if we'll ever get to a point where, because these privacy laws are so, I'm going to say invasive, but invasive on the corporate side, not on the personal side. Yeah. This invasive is probably the wrong word, but unless we get something that's that intense, I don't think we're ever going to get something that's a personal, smart home hub or whatever. A personal home computer or whatever. Yeah. Which would have the processing power to do all this stuff, but I don't know.
The other thing also is the information is already out there. So even if tomorrow, the lockdown, you are not allowed to collect information on people, period. That's just it's that ridiculous of a crazy law. You're not allowed to collect information on anybody, period. Mm-hmm. that would want to destroy lots of ecosystems. There are lots of companies out there just overnight, especially having to work on that, because even collecting information would be something that crazy. That's your password and username. You do hand over information to make it so you can do business. Mm-hmm. Your bank knows who you are. You hand over your ID. The DMV knows who you are. You hand over information. You hand over this information to identify this is who I am, which reduces fraud. To put it that in crazy of level of you can't collect information suddenly makes it difficult to do business on both the business side and on the consumer side, and it could possibly raise fraud to a ridiculous level. So there is definitely a kind of a fine line we have to play with this. And also, did you ever watch the latest season of Westworld?
No, I haven't watched Westworld at all.
Oh, okay. So that's one of the things that happened in the latest season of Westworld is that there were laws that were put in that you couldn't collect information on people.
Like at all?
Not anymore. So, you weren't allowed to, or at least use the information. So you could still do banking and all that. They didn't put to the extreme of not collect information, but you weren't allowed to make money off of, collecting information and selling it and all this. Well, there were people who had collected all of the information that existed up to that point. And they found out, and they did that thing where if we guide you down this path, do these things, give you these options, you will react in these particular ways. And anybody who we find out has the ability to break the rules on this, they are an outlier, and we will remove them from society to reprogram them. And if they are unable to be reprogrammed, we will end their life. So this makes it so peace is eternal now. So always keep the peaceful, happy-go-lucky people in. Always keep the people that aren't going to cause issues. So is that a
utopia or a dystopia, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a utopia for the people who are good, which is probably most of them. But dystopia for people who are not on that side.
There were lots on both sides. Because it also highly removes your free will. Because it also made it was like the main character. It's the guy who played Jesse from Breaking Bad.
Okay.
He was ex-military. He ended up having all sorts of issues when his mom left him when he was a kid. All this other stuff, and they ended up going like, "Oh, you're going to be an outlier," and they reprogrammed him to gather other outliers and bring him in. He thought he was doing other various missions. And that's what he was doing is he was gathering stuff for the company, gathering these outliers for the company and bringing them in or wiping them out or taking them out. So
it's not even like breaking the law. It's that if they're suspected of breaking or breaking the law in the future. Well,
they know how you will react. So they know so much information about you that they basically are able to predict how everyone is going to react to every situation. They have an AI that basically they have pumped it full of every possible. It has run down the path of every possible scenario, and it has made the utopia path.
So I'm trying to understand something here. So this is a company doing it or a government?
It's a company. Yes.
And is the information, like, are they able to get new information, or is it just from whatever they got before the law was passed?
So it's what they got from before the law was passed, but they were able to gather information because of Westworld, because the invention of Westworld. So they invested heavily in the Westworld thing, and this you get the people's pure rawness of how are you going to act. But you're also able, because you've also started bringing these groups in, you're able to build up information on these people, gathering additional information. So they're keeping it internal. They're not selling it, but they're keeping it internal.
Well, yeah, but they're also not getting they're not processing new information all the time from like the outside world.
From all of it, yes.
Which
they did shut down the AI and they spun it back up, but the AI had so much information. You're right. People can change over time.
Well, it's not even that people can change. It's like there's new people.
Yes.
You don't have a footprint for them, so you don't know how, like, I think there's a fallacy here in that. Yes, you could plan ahead. Like, you could simulate ahead, but the further in the future you get, the more raw the simulation is going to be. And yeah, you could have tons and tons and tons of simulations or whatnot to counteract that, but you're still going to have too much errors at a certain point, and that still doesn't take into account new people.
That's why they didn't go too far in the future. Like, it was like, I think the law had existed for like 10 to 20 years. So it wasn't very long. They had tons of information as it was about the majority of people that were alive. So this machine had been created while it was allowed to collect information. So, and then they had shut down the AI. They had, because they were like, we're on the path. And it was basically stopping the collapse of all of society. It's what they had saw. They're like, oh, everything's going to collapse. War is going to happen. Everything's going to be terrible. And they created the AI to make the utopia path. They got rid of the outlier. They work on getting rid of the outliers. And all it did was delay it.
Oh, it just delayed it.
Because they were able to go in like, we're just going to do this. And plus, then that also was proven where new people is, I forgot her name now, the main robot from Westworld. She would come into the real world. And it was like, I don't know who you are. Like, you don't exist. You are an anomaly in all of this. Mm-hmm. So you actually can cause me issues. So we either get rid of anomalies or we find out what the anomaly is and figure out exactly everything about the anomaly. And that's the thing, is that what it would do is basically would find anomalies or outliers and resolve them.
So is Westworld a real world or is it a simulation?
Westworld is a world where you go to, is an amusement park that you go to, that you live in the wild, wild west in the 1800s. And where you get to deal with robots. These are robots that look like humans. They act, you get to, whatever you want to do, be nice to them, be mean to them, do whatever you want. The robots gained sentience and they started wanting their own freedom. They wanted to stop being just massacred all the time.
Yeah.
And that was the first season.
Okay.
I think we're on like 3 or 4 right now. The last season, she was in the real world. She was walking around our world.
So Westworld is an amusement park in our world.
Yes, it's on like a random island in...
Like Jurassic Park.
Yes, exactly. And there's other worlds too. There was, medieval China. There was...
Eastworld.
Yes. I think in the movie there was Roman world.
Okay, that's what I was just wondering. Because the way you were describing it made it almost seem like Westworld might be a simulation of sorts.
Well, it kind of is because, yes, you're not putting on the VR glasses because the robots have gotten advanced enough. So it's a simulation as in you don't need the goggles to walk into the simulation. You just change your clothes and you walk into the simulation.
What I was more getting at was like a simulation as far as like Sword Art level.
Oh.
Where the people are simulated.
Well, yeah, this is more advanced than even Sword Art because they're not simulated. They're physically built and...
No, that's fine.
Yeah. It's the next level past Sword Art. You get to stay in the real world. Because I don't think Sword Art could have a Sword Art was only breaking into the AI idea towards the end of with...
Oh, I wasn't meaning I was just meaning straight up like the idea.
And there is some of that they actually do go into where that's actually how they also work with psychology. With some of that is you're able to put on goggles and you're able to see things and feel things and react to things, and how you react depends on how it So there is a highly advanced AI like Sword Art in the Westworld show.
Well, with Sword Art, I don't even know that I'd call that
Because that's also how you get to make people.
is
You basically know so much about them.
yeah.
So this is actually the other thing.
because like what I was arguing though is that they're actual like people. They're copies of people, but they're people. So I don't even know I don't know that I'd classify them as artificial intelligence.
True.
They're a simulation of it.
Well, they're artificial intelligence because they're not made from organic.
Okay, if you were to say artificial life,
I know that's
I
why
might agree with it.
And honestly, even the robots, they have so much organic. They can still get shot. They have a core that is their brain that, if destroyed, is the end of their existence, unless it's been backed up.
Oh, okay.
And it's a large storage. It's huge storage.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible to be backed up. And that's also what they were doing with the first season. Was the initial creator, he was wanting he was just having issues, he was losing his mind, he was all this, and they ended up like copying him, and they knew everything about him, and they put him into a robot. It looked like him, it acted like him, everything. It was him. They knew so much about him. That's the other thing about also knowing so much is, if I know everything about you, I know what you're going to do, which means if I know everything that you're going to do and I make a copy of you, that copy is going to do everything you would have done. Because this is you. This is everything you. Yes, it will evolve over time, and depending on what paths it's given depends on how it's evolved. So we could change its outcomes, or if it's given the same path as you are given, it will make the same decisions. And that's how, because they have so much information on you. But they created this guy, put him in a robot, and the problem was he kept on like realizing he's a robot, and then he'd break down.
Oh.
So they had to figure out how do I tell you that you're a robot, you acknowledge that, and you both walk away without any issues. You just go, good to know.
He was dead though, right?
Oh, the guy was long dead. Well, the one guy, the one of the original creators, or one of the original investors.
So I don't know. I don't understand why people would freak out. If you told me I was a copy and that my real thing was still out there, I might freak out, because then I would be a copy.
Yes.
And or I would deny that I'm not the copy, I'm the real thing, or whatever.
I know, yes.
So, but I can't say that in confidence that would be how I would react. I just feel like that's how I would. But at the same time, yeah, you're a copy, or maybe, okay, you're dead. Yeah. And you've been brought back, but you don't know if this is your first time being brought back, because you could just be an old archive and they just wiped you and brought you back to a previous form. So,
but there's that. But there's also the other thing of you're not truly because you are a copy of yourself. You can run into the issues of not truly accepting it, not going like, well, but I feel like I am me.
Yeah.
Actually, even Black Mirror kind of went with this. Is like, I am me. You know, when he was changing the egg in the Christmas special,
yeah,
the White Christmas one, because that's the other stuff. They had so much information on this lady. She knows exactly how she wants her bread done. So how do you, if you want everything to be done automatically, but you don't want to think about it, you have a copy of you, you set it aside, and it knows it is you. It is bona fide you.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. So there's all these little things. So because this is you, it will do everything how you want it to do. And because it follows you along, if you change your mind, you tell it you've changed your mind. It doesn't argue, because it goes, well, I'm you. I think like you. that makes sense why you would change your mind like that. So I've changed my mind as well. And you both you both as the exact same thing, continually move along together, change your mind coherently. Where some minor coherence might fall off is you leave the house and you experience life and you come back and you give it a new order. It didn't experience that. So it doesn't think that makes sense because it didn't have that experience that you just did without being updated. But the other thing, I am me. So I am the original. No, you're not. You're a robot. I know we were working on this, but I don't believe you. Like, I can't believe you. But we probably should wrap things up.
I want to bring up one more thing.
Okay, one more thing. Go ahead.
So, similar to this, there's a book series out there. I think it's called the Commonwealth Saga. The first book was called Pandora's Star, but they've advanced to the point where they've become immortal by one. When they reach around like 50 or 60, they basically go and they spend about, I don't even know how long, it might be a decade, it might only be 2 or 3 years, but they spend some time getting rejuvenated till they're about 19 or 20. Yeah. Like they reverse the aging process basically, and then they just do this every once in a while. But they can also back up their memories, or because they're living so long, the human brain can't actually store all that information. They actually extract stuff that they don't care about anymore. And the nice thing about this is that if you get killed, you have what they call a body death, because they can still bring you back. They're not bringing you back into a robot or anything. It's a clone of your actual body. They just push the memories in. But there's an argument going out there or going around where, are you really you? Like,
yeah,
because there's a concept of a soul and they don't know what or not. And most people don't agree with that. Like, they're just be like, yeah, I mean, because they grew up with it all the time, they don't really think about that anymore. Mm-hmm. But when the thing first came around, there was a lot of people that refused to do it because they didn't agree with it and they didn't think that they'd be them if they were to die. But that's the basic idea, and it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. I think I brought this up before on the podcast. I know I brought the book up, and I think I brought up that part too.
Oh, there's an old book that actually...
And that's a very small part of the book, by the way.
Yeah.
Because they also can use wormholes, and they use trains to travel through the wormholes, which is a weird combination of technology.
I forgot what the book was. Maybe I'll remember it later. I remember what I talked about earlier on the podcast. It was a little short book, but yeah. So it's the Commonwealth Saga, the Pandora Star. It's in the show notes.
Ooh, GoodReads. I use that.
I was thinking, I kind of think I like GoodReads instead of like linking it to the particular one, though I think GoodReads is still owned by Amazon. I don't know. It's either that or the wiki I was going to choose.
Oh, I don't know. No, I like it because it's basically...
it's not...
You can mark that you've read it, or you can put it on your want to read. It's like TV time for books. That's why I like it. I haven't used it for a while because the app's kind of... I wouldn't say it's buggy.
Well, it's
not a very good UX design.
You also can link it to your Amazon account. So as you finish the books,
if you use a Kindle, or if you've been reading ebooks,
or the audiobooks,
or the audiobooks, which I don't do either. So
I do lots of audio books.
I should, because the books I buy are like $10 to $15, and they're not that very big. And if I buy the ebook, it's usually like $5 or $7. So I'd save a lot of money, but I'd prefer the... Holy crap, that's a password.
Oh, all my passwords are at least, 30. I found out that I ran into one that...
Most websites don't let you do more than like 20.
Well, there's a lot, yeah. I found one that let me do 200, which is the length of... No, 99, which is the length that LastPass will let you do.
My thinking 99. On that is that there are some times where I have to type them in manually, and I wouldn't want to do that on one that's that long. So my limit is, I have a hard limit usually. And I will do that especially on like accounts that, like if I'm first setting up a device, I probably won't have LastPass installed.
Oh, it's one of the very first things I do.
Well, I know that, but even before that, because there's a certain point where you have to sign in before you can get it.
Yeah.
So I at least make it like it's still. I can't remember it without LastPass, but it's easy to type in and easy to tell if I screw up. So, well, easier to tell. Whereas if it was just a bunch of like numbers, not so much.
Okay, it might not have the audiobooks because I know I've just finished a few that are not on this list. Oh yeah, there's actually a decent amount of books on audio on Audible that are not on this list.
You may not have it hooked up because Amazon is not necessarily, because I think you can have an Audible account that's not your Amazon account, or at least not necessarily linked.
Okay, mine are very.
They might be very linked, but GoodReads might not care about that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, so I figured out my GoodReads account is Amazon linked. That's how. But also, I have an Audible account because it's Amazon. Like I didn't get into Audible. Was Audible ever pre-Amazon? Was that one of them they purchased or one of them they made?
No, I'm pretty sure Audible. Look it up.
Okay. Well, I don't know. We have been on this too long. How about that?
Okay, fine.
Famous last words.
I think Audible did exist on its own separately, like it was its own entity at one point. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was. I think I've seen an LGR video on it.
All right.
But yeah, that's my last words. What are yours?
If you don't want to read something, just go listen to it. And you don't. I like it.
I know. That's fine. People like audiobooks. I zone out.